Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad you guys are here today. I'm Jamie. I am with Metro Council and really excited to be here today um, to introduce Laura. But before I do that, um, just wanted to let you all know. So, Metro Council, so it stands for Metropolitan Council of Community Mental Health Centers. It's a collaborative membership. Representing the public mental health system of community behavioral health centers serving the greater metro Kansas City area. So that includes University Health Behavioral Health, Beacon Mental Health, Rediscover Mental Health, Comprehensive Mental Health, SWOPE Health, Wyandotte Behavioral Network. Um, oh, I'm sorry, Tiffany. Johnson County Mental Health Center, um, along with Mental Health America of the Heartland, and Center for Behavioral Medicine. And so we all nine of us represent the community behavioral health centers of the greater metro Kansas City area. And we provide support to our members, to organizations, and provide education, information, resources to the public on quality behavioral health. So we actually just had our mental health KC conference. So for all of you that attended, thank you all so much for being here. Um, and at the end of our time today, I will be putting up a website and a code for you to get your contact hour for today. So therefore, if you need it, you will get it at the end of our time today. Um, so in case you have any questions, let me know. And with that, a couple other things to note. I'm going to pull it up really quick. Little slide. So first of all, thank you all for being here. Um, and just letting you all know, we do use Zoom webinar. That is why you cannot see yourselves. You're only able to see the presenter, not yourself. You are able to communicate through the chat box, through the Q&A. And again, certificate of attendance will be available at the end of our webinar today. I will give you a link and a password and you'll be able to get it. Quick little disclaimer. So the views and opinions presented are those of the speaker and don't necessarily represent the opinions of Metro Council. So with that, I am so excited to introduce Laura. Just a little bit about Laura is a passionate researcher and writer specializing in the psychology of motivation, personal development, and resilience. With a background in exercise physiology, Laura spent over 15 years studying the factors that drive human performance, achievement, and well-being. As a professional, Laura has worked with individuals and organizations to foster lasting motivation and resilience in the face of challenges. Through her work, Laura has helped people cultivate perseverance, develop positive mindsets, and set meaningful goals that align with their core values. Laura is committed to helping others unlock their full potential and achieve success by offering practical insights guided in scientific research. And when not writing or coaching, Laura enjoys spending time with her three dogs and working in the mental health field. And you can follow Laura on Facebook for more insights and resources on motivation and personal development. So with that, I am so excited to introduce Laura. I'm hoping Laura is hearing this. Is anyone else able to hear Laura? Okay, guys, give me just a minute. Let's see if we can get her on. We did hear her earlier. Okay, guys, I'm not sharing anything. So let's see what we can help with. Give me just a second, guys. Okay, guys, we are trying to get a hold of Laura. Hopefully all of you guys can hear me. We are trying to get a hold of Laura, but we have not had success thus far. So give us just a couple minutes.
Hi everyone, I do apologize for that. I'm having technical difficulties over here. Can you hear me now? Yes, everyone can hear me okay. I do apologize for that. Sorry, having internet connectivity issues. And share my screen. All right.
Perfect.
Perfect. All right. I do apologize for that. So, hello everyone, and thank you for being here with me today. My name is Laura, and I'm excited to talk with you about something that often gets misunderstood, and that something is motivation. Let me start by asking you a simple question. When's the last time you felt truly, deeply motivated? Maybe it was after hearing a powerful speech, watching an inspiring video, or hitting a personal goal. And that feeling, while electric, probably didn't last forever. And that's because motivation, in the way that most of us understand it, is fleeting. It comes and goes like a wave. But if we want lasting progress, whether it's in our careers, our health, our relationships, or our mental well being, we need something more sustainable. And that something is discipline. Today, we're going to challenge the myth that motivation is what drives success. Instead, I'll show you why discipline is the real engine behind meaningful change and how that's deeply connected to our mental health. We'll talk about the science, real life examples, mental health principles, and most importantly, practical tools you can use to build discipline in your life starting today. So let's start by talking about motivation and what it actually is versus what we have been led to believe that it is. For most people, motivation is this magical feeling, a spark, a jolt of energy that pushes you into action. You've probably heard it before. I just need to get motivated again. Or I haven't felt motivated in a while, and that's why I've fallen off. We tend to wait for motivation like it's a train that will arrive at any moment, pick us up, and take us straight to our goals. But what if I told you that train isn't coming? Motivation is a feeling, and that's it. It's not a plan, it's not a habit, and it's not a system. It's a fleeting emotional state, just like all emotions, that comes and goes. Think about it. Have you ever felt super inspired at 10 p.m. to start working out or to change your life or maybe get your finances in order? You plan everything, you're hyped and ready to go, and then you wake up the next morning and you don't feel it anymore. That's familiar to me, and I'm sure with some of you. That's because motivation is state dependent. It's driven by mood, environment, energy, hormones, weather, and even what you ate last night. Now, there's a problem. If we base our behavior on how motivated we feel, then we'll only act when the conditions are perfect. And as all of us know, the conditions are rarely perfect. So let me bring in some science here. In a 2018 study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, researchers examined long term goal pursuit. They found that people who relied heavily on motivational surges, like bursts of inspiration, were significantly less likely to follow through on their goals over time compared to people who operated from routine or habit. Well, why is this? And it's because motivation fluctuates, it's unreliable. It might be high after a TED talk or a great conversation, but it doesn't stick around when you're tired, stressed, or discouraged. Discipline, on the other hand, is not based on how you feel. It's based on what you've decided. Here's another big myth that feeds into the motivational trap. That's social media. You scroll through TikTok or Instagram and you see someone waking up at 5 a.m., doing a cold plunge, journaling, meditating, going to the gym, meal prepping, and you think, wow, that person is so motivated. I wish I could be like that. But the truth is, you're just seeing a highlight reel. You're seeing behavior without a backstory. You're not seeing the days I didn't feel like it but did it anyway. You're not seeing what looks like motivation actually happening, but you're seeing discipline practiced over time. Motivation might get you started, but discipline is what keeps you going. Let's contrast the two a little more clearly. Motivation is emotional, discipline is behavioral. Motivation asks, do I feel like it? Discipline says, I do it because I said I would. Motivation comes and goes. Discipline is trained and repeatable. And here's the thing. The more you act out of discipline, the more motivation will start to show up as a result and not a requirement. In other words, motivation is a fuel, but it's the product. Now, I briefly want to touch on two types of motivation. Not because all motivation isn't created equal. Extrinsic motivation comes from external awards, such as praise, money, approval, and even punishment. This can be helpful in the short term, but it's not sustainable. Intrinsic motivation, on the other hand, is when your drive comes from the inside, such as your values, your identity, or your purpose. This is stronger, but it still doesn't guarantee action. When we believe in what we're doing, we don't always feel like doing it, but that's where discipline builds the gap. Let's take an example. You might believe in taking care of your body, and that's intrinsic. But when it's cold, rainy, and you're exhausted from working a 12-hour shift, do you go to the gym? Motivation might not show up, but if you have discipline, you would go to the gym anyway. Now, here's where it gets a little more serious. When we only operate from motivation and then we don't feel like it, we start to judge ourselves. We say things like, what's wrong with me? Or I'm just lazy. Or I guess I don't want it bad enough. That self-criticism impacts our mental health. It lowers our self-worth. It leads to guilt, shame, and even symptoms of depression. When we reframe success as a matter of discipline, not constant motivation, we remove the shame of inconsistency. Instead of chasing a feeling, we start building systems. Instead of waiting to feel better, we take small, disciplined actions over time, and those actions change how we feel. So let me ask you this. What area of your life have you been waiting to feel more motivated to change? And what would change if instead you committed to one small act of discipline each day, even if you didn't feel like it? So now that we've exposed the myth of motivation, let's talk about the truth of what actually works. Discipline. When I say the word discipline, how does it make you feel? For some people, the word discipline brings up ideas of punishment, restriction, or even failure. But we think of discipline as something harsh naturally when there's an external force on us. But that's not the kind of discipline that I'm talking about. I want to offer you a new definition, a healthier and more empowering one. Discipline is doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it, because you're anchored to who you want to become. It's not punishment, it's not rigidity, it's not perfection, it's practice, it's a skill, and a tool for alignment. Discipline is how we turn our intentions into behavior and behavior into our identity. It's what bridges the gap between our best intentions and our daily choices. Let me say that again because it's powerful. Discipline is the bridge between your goals and your actions. Let's briefly talk about the science behind discipline, because it's not just about grit or willpower. Discipline is largely regulated by the prefrontal cortex. That's the part of your brain responsible for executive functioning, decision-making, planning, and impulse control. This part of your brain says, go to the gym even though you're tired. Or don't scroll on your phone for another hour. It's time to go to bed. It's also important, this is also the part that allows you to delay gratification. You've probably heard of the famous marshmallow test. It's the famous experiment where researchers put a marshmallow in front of a child and told them, you can eat this now, or if you wait 15 minutes, you'll get 2 marshmallows. The kids who waited, who delayed their gratification, were more likely later in life to have higher academic achievements, better relationships, and healthier habits. And the most fascinating part of later versions of this experiment showed you can train this ability. Delaying gratification, like discipline, isn't something that you're born with or without. It's a skill you can strengthen over time through consistent behavior. Now, let's make something clear. Discipline isn't about willpower. Willpower is like a battery, it drains throughout the day. Discipline, on the other hand, is more like a system. It's not about making heroic decisions all day long. It's about making a few smart ones in advance. For example, setting out your workout clothes the night before, prepping a meal on Sundays so you don't have to rely on fast food throughout the week, or turning your phone off during your most productive hours. All of that is discipline. And those are all systems that make your desired behaviors default. As author James Clear says in Atomic Habits, you don't raise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. You might have great goals, but without disciplined systems, you will default to what's easy, not what's effective. Now let's look at how this shows up in real life. Think about elite athletes, military personnel, or top performers in business or healthcare. Are they always motivated? No, but they build their lives around discipline, around systems and structures, and around habits. An Olympic weightlifter doesn't skip training because they just don't feel like it today. A trauma surgeon doesn't decide to show up late because they needed to hit snooze. And a firefighter doesn't opt out of their shift because they're just not in the mood. These individuals build discipline into their identity. They don't ask, do I feel like it today? They ask, what's the standard that I've committed to? You don't have to be an elite athlete to apply this. You can be a parent, a student, a leader, a person trying to heal, and you can build your life on discipline. So, how do we actually build discipline? Well, it starts with one word, and that's consistency. Discipline is about doing small things repeatedly, not perfectly, but repeatedly. And here's the good news, you don't have to do it all at once. You can start small, lower your barrier to entry, and stack the wins. We call this habit stacking. Examples would be maybe when I make my morning coffee, I write one sentence in my journal. Or after I brush my teeth for the night, I put my phone on airplane mode. It's not about intensity, but it's more about identity. Every disciplined action you take is a vote for the person you want to become. And when you vote for that identity over and over, your brain begins to believe it. Here's the truth that may make you feel uncomfortable, but it's freeing. You don't have to feel like doing something to do it. Again, you don't have to feel like doing something to do it. Sometimes you just have to do it. Most people wait for the feeling to come. High performers reverse that order. They act first, and the feeling often follows. This is what behavioral psychologists call behavioral activation. It's used in therapy all the time for depression, anxiety, and trauma recovery. The idea is your actions change your emotions, not the other way around. So here's something for you to try. Think of one habit that you're currently doing that supports who you want to become. And then think of one habit you're doing that's pulling you away from that version of yourself. Take a second to write that down or just think about it. And you're not going to fix everything right now, but it just begins with awareness. Now ask yourself, what would it look like to replace that unhelpful habit with something just 1% better? Not 100%, but just one small, sustainable shift. Now to recap on discipline. Discipline is a skill. It's not a character trait. It's learnable, trainable, and sustainable. Your brain's prefrontal cortex governs discipline. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. You don't need to rely on willpower if you build systems and structures. Small, repeatable behaviors define who you become. And discipline doesn't restrict you. It frees you from the chaos, inconsistency, and emotional decision making. Now let's talk about where this all comes together, the connection between discipline and our mental health. I want to be clear right out of the gate. When I talk about discipline as a mental health tool, I'm not saying you can simply hustle your way out of anxiety or work your way out of depression. I think we all know that's not how that works. Mental health is complex. It's emotional, psychological, biochemical, and sometimes even genetic. But here's the truth: structure helps stabilize the mind. And that structure, when it's rooted in discipline, becomes one of the most powerful tools you have for protecting and improving our mental health. So let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like your life is spinning out of control? You don't know what time you're waking up, what you're eating, when you'll do the next thing you need to do. You feel like you're chasing the day, constantly behind, anxious, disorganized, mentally overwhelmed. And that's not just disorganization, that's chaos. And our nervous system does not thrive in chaos. When our mind doesn't know what's coming next, it stays on high alert, and that's anxiety. It's like your body is waiting for the next fire to put out. Discipline, on the other hand, brings order, not in a controlling or obsessive way, but in a grounding way. When you know what to expect, when you know how your day begins, what your baseline habits are, and what your non negotiables look like, your brain feels safer. And when your brain feels safe, your nervous system calms down. Your thoughts become more clear. You can think, reflect, heal, and plan instead of just reacting. Discipline in this way becomes emotional regulation in disguise. Let's talk about routines, not just for productivity, but for peace. Psychologists often recommend that people with anxiety or depression create daily structure, not because routines fix everything, but because structure is stabilizing. For someone who's depressed, getting out of bed can feel like a mountain. So, simple structure like waking up and brushing your teeth, having one healthy meal, taking your meds, moving your body becomes a lifeline. And that's discipline. It's not punishment, it's more of protection. In trauma therapy, we often say predictability is safety. So, when we create rhythm in our life, even simple rituals like making your bed or a 5-minute morning walk, you're telling your brain, we're okay, we're not in danger, we have a plan, and we are in control. That's not a productivity hack, that's mental health hygiene. So, with that said, I want to introduce a concept called the confidence loop. And this is how it works. Every time you do something you said you would do, even a small thing, you cast a vote for being someone who follows through. The more often you do that, the more you begin to trust yourself. And when you trust yourself, your self esteem rises. With higher self esteem, your mental health stabilizes. Discipline isn't about being hard on yourself, it's about building trust for yourself. When you say, I'll go for a walk today, and you actually do it, that's not just cardio, that's proof that you can count on yourself. That internal trust is one of the strongest protectors against anxiety, depression, and low self worth. Let's go a little deeper. For many people, especially those who have experienced trauma, life can feel unpredictable, unsafe, and out of control. Discipline is not about controlling everything, it's about reclaiming control over our actions. It's about saying, I can't control what happened to me, but I can control how I show up today. Every small act of discipline is a reclaiming of power. Whether that's journaling for 5 minutes when your thoughts are racing, saying no to toxic people even when it's hard, showing up to therapy every week. Those aren't motivational acts, they're mental health strategies. Here's something that might surprise you. People who struggle with depression aren't lazy, or I'm sorry, people that struggle with discipline aren't lazy. They just don't see themselves as someone who is quote unquote disciplined. It's not about behavior, but it's about identity. Deep down, you believe, I've always been a mess. I'm always the anxious one, and I never follow through. And then your brain subconsciously tries to confirm that belief, not because you want to suffer, but because the brain craves consistency within its identity. So, how do we fix that? You act like the person you want to become before you feel like that person, and that's how identity shift happens. If you want to become someone who has strong mental health, ask yourself, what would that person do in the morning? What would that person's evening routine look like? And how would that person treat themselves in a setback? Then start doing that, even if it feels small and even if it feels fake at first, because it's not fake. That's just building. Now let's talk about how discipline simplifies our mental world. Every time you eliminate a decision, you reduce the mental load. That's why many successful people wear the same outfit every day or have the same breakfast every morning. Not because they're boring, but because they're freeing up mental bandwidth. In the same way, habits, in the same way, your disciplined habits, whether it's journaling, working out, prepping your meals, are actually creating mental clarity. And mental clarity gives you emotional peace to think more clearly, reflect more honestly, and respond more calmly. That's a mental health benefit that a lot of people don't talk about. So, what does a mentally strong version of you do consistently? Not perfectly, but consistently. Take a second and really think about it. They may check in with their emotions, say no to things that drain them, get out in the sun every morning, move their body, speak to themselves kindly, and make sure they take their medication. Now, the real question is, are you willing to start doing just one of those things today? It's not about motivation, it's not about grinding, it's about self respect. When you hear people say discipline is freedom, that's not just a productivity quote. It's a truth about mental wellness. Discipline brings order to your day. Order brings safety to your nervous system. Safety brings clarity to your mind, and clarity brings peace to your emotions. Discipline is not the enemy of mental health, it's the bridge to it. So, by now, we've broken down a lot of theory. We've talked about why motivation is unreliable. We've talked about how discipline builds strength, structure, and even supports our mental health. But let's get real for a second. You can know all of that and still wake up tomorrow and hit the snooze button. You can still stare at your to-do list and say, not today. So let's spend a couple minutes here talking about tools, real practical tools that you can use to help build discipline in your life. Not someday, not when you feel like it, but starting right now. Let's start with one simple, powerful technique, the one more rule. This comes from the idea that building discipline doesn't mean doing everything. Sometimes it means just doing one more thing than you planned. For example, you're doing push ups and your arms are tired, do one more. You're reading a chapter and you want to quit halfway, read one more page. This rule helps you train your brain to override the quitting impulse, but in a way that's manageable. You're not pushing yourself to burnout. You're just saying, I don't want to quit when it's hard, so I'm going to do one more. Over time, your mind stops associating difficulty with stopping, and that's the muscle discipline developing over time. Next is your non-negotiable list. Highly disciplined people, often the most disciplined people that I've worked with or have studied, have short lists of habits or behaviors that are non-negotiable. Think of these as the daily minimums that define who you are, no matter how chaotic the day is. They might include drinking 100 ounces of water, walking for 30 minutes, 5 minutes of journaling, taking your meds, or maybe even no screens after 10 p.m. The point isn't that these are groundbreaking tasks. The point is that they're non-negotiable. It's not up for discussion. It's not based on mood. It's not if you have time. It's this is what I do because this is who I am. When you live by a few strong non-negotiables, you build internal structure. That structure makes life more predictable, and that predictability feeds focus, resilient, and discipline. Now let's talk about our time, because the truth is, discipline and time are married. If you don't command your schedule will command you. One of the most practical things you can do starting today is called time blocking. This is where you take your day and divide it into blocks of focused time with clear intentions for each block. Here's the key. Time blocking being perfect. It's about reducing decision fatigue. When you have a plan, you don't waste time asking, what should I do next? Is this the right time? Or should I take a break? You've already decided. And then the block ends, you switch on purpose. This structure forces you to show up even when you don't feel like it. And that's discipline in its purest form. Doing what you planned even though you don't want to. The next is called identity-based habit change, and it comes from behavioral psychology. Most people set goals like, I want to lose 20 pounds, I want to stop procrastinating, and I want to wake up earlier. But the goals don't change who you are, identity does. So instead of asking, what do I want to achieve? Ask yourself, who do I want to become? Am I someone who keeps promises to myself? Am I someone who moves my body every day? Or am I someone who respects my time? then align your behaviors with that identity. So every time you follow through, you're not just getting something done, you're proving to yourself that the identity is real. You're saying, this is who I am now. And that's the fastest way to change your behavior long term, by anchoring it to who you are, not who you want, not what you want. Discipline gets built on micro moments. So, this is one of my favorite tools, the 2-minute rule. It goes like this: if you're resisting something, whether it's a workout, writing, homework, phone call, anything really, just commit 2 minutes to it. Tell yourself, I'm going to do this for 2 minutes. After that, I can stop. The brilliance of this tool is that it bypasses our resistance, because starting is the hardest part. 95% of the time, once you start, you don't stop. You were never actually unwilling to do the task. You were just unwilling to begin. This rule is how you sneak past your excuses. And then once you're in motion, you're already winning. So us as humans, we are visual creatures. We like to see progress. So I always recommend some version of streak tracking, whether it's on an app or whiteboard, or every day that you complete your non-negotiables. It could be something just as simple as workout done, no snooze button, water goal hit, meditation complete. The magic is in the momentum. Once you see 4 or 5 check marks in a row, you don't want to break the streak. That visual cue becomes positive pressure, and it keeps you accountable. Even better, you start to feel pride in showing up. This isn't about perfection. If you miss a day, don't shame yourself. Restart the streak, own it, and that's where the power is. Here's the last tool, and it's more of a mindset shift than a tool. And it's discipline doesn't require drama. You don't need to yell, hype yourself up, feel tortured to be disciplined. You have to wait. You don't have to wait for the right mood or have the perfect playlist or cup of coffee. True discipline is quiet. It's calm and it's steady. It sounds like, I said I would, so I will. This is what I do. I don't need to want to, I just need to begin. That's the mindset of someone who wins long term. They don't rely on emotions, they rely on repetition. If you want more disciplined, don't just wait to feel different. Remember, you don't have to be perfect to be disciplined. You just have to show up more often than not. Discipline isn't a punishment, it's the most powerful act of self respect there is. We started by dismantling the myth of motivation. We replaced it with something stronger, something more reliable. That something is discipline. We explored how discipline is not punishment or perfection. It's about structure, identity, and self respect. It's quiet, consistent, and your choice to show up, especially when you don't feel like it, is key. We looked at how this shift from motivation to discipline is not just a productivity hack, it's a mental health tool, because you know how to lead yourself. When you trust your own following through, you're less anxious, less chaotic, and far more grounded. And finally, we talked about tools, real ones, not the fluff, not the hype, just actionable human habit building strategies that you can start where you are and grow with you. But now it's your turn, because I can't give you discipline. I can model it, I can teach it, but you have to live it. You have to be the one who walks away from this and says, enough waiting for motivation. I'm not interested in excuses anymore, and I'm the kind of person that follows through. I want to leave you with this. You are the author now. You get to write the next chapter. No one is coming to do it for you. No one is going to rescue you from your own potential. But you're capable of more than you've even scratched the surface of. Discipline is the pen, mental strength is the paper, and the next season of your life, it's yours to write. And if today sparks something with you and you're ready to go deeper and build these skills into your everyday life, I'd love to share where you can find me on my Instagram and Spotify, and also my book, Unyielding, a research backed approach to staying motivated when things get tough, which are now available on Amazon. And I would like to thank everybody for attending.
Thank you so much, Laura. So now is the perfect time for questions. What questions do you guys have for Laura? And you can put it in the chat or you can put it in the Q&A. Okay, thus far we have a lot of thank yous. Very well done. Great job, Laura. I love the information and how easy it was to understand. Thank you. No question for me, only a comment. I really like the 2-minute rule and cannot wait to share this case managers to help increase their motivation. Someone else that agree with the 2-minute rule. Great tool. Thank you. Looking forward to hearing the recording again. Thank you. I needed this. So slides, we will have the recording available. It should be up probably next week on the Mental Health KC website. We do not give the PowerPoints, unfortunately, um, um, for legal reasons. So we one time shared a PowerPoint, and so we don't do that anymore. Um, but we will still share the recording. Okay, so we had a couple others. Um, the uniform and eating the same thing regularly to offload brain overload. So simple and so helpful. Thank you. Agree. Offloading. I never thought of it that way. And with that, we will do the certificate of attendance. So for those of you, actually before we do this, any other questions? Okay. Angela said many of these skills are standard fare for executive skills deficit comprehension. Very nice to have a refresher. Okay. So with that, the certificate of attendance is in the chat. And Laura, thank you again so much for presenting. This was fantastic and love the idea of offloading and that 2-minute rule. I like eating the same thing daily, so I thought that was fantastic. So
Yeah. Thank
thank
you for
you
having me.
all.
It was a blast.
Thank you all so much. If you guys have any questions, please let us know. Laura, if you want to stick around for just a few more minutes, I'll stick around as well.
Okay.
And I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you all.